I've been learning English for more than 20 years, and my level is somewhere in between C1 and C2. Recently, I thought to myself, what if I had to start learning English from scratch, from zero again, right now? What would I do differently? Hey, my fellow English learner, you're watching Fluent English with Lady Giraffe. I'm Olga, and today I'm sharing my language learning plan. You know that language proficiency can be organized in 6 levels from A1 to C2. So let's imagine I had to start learning English again. I'm back to square one. No knowledge of English whatsoever. This level of nothing is sometimes called a zero. In reality, though, not a lot of people start learning English from zero because there's so much English around us, no matter where we live. Well, first of all, I'd learn the basics of vocabulary and grammar. And this means using my native language and translation to help me with understanding what's going on. It's very important to learn how to use a translation dictionary at this stage. And honestly speaking, I wouldn't bother with paper dictionaries. Using a phone is way easier. I studied English at school in Russia in the 90s and early 2000s, and I graduated from high school with the A2 level, pre-intermediate. Just imagine, it took me 10 years. Now I know it could have been done in much less time. 2 to 3 hours a week for 10 years in a group is not a lot, I'm afraid. Now I dedicate 2 hours of study a day to reach the same A2 level in around a year and a half. That's basically what I've been doing with my Greek studies. I'd focus on the most common English vocabulary and the most common topics. Nothing fancy, nothing outdated. I'd also focus on correct pronunciation, and it's better if someone is guiding you. It's so much easier to learn how to pronounce words clearly and correctly from the start than to relearn them. And I know what I'm talking about. I had this experience in the past. I was taught the so called received pronunciation at school, or British English. And then I happened to fall in love with the way standard American pronunciation sounded and decided to learn that. It took me a few years to retrain my brain and my mouth to sound differently. But if I had to start the process all over again, I'd remind myself all the time that perfection doesn't exist and that I don't have to sound like a native speaker. I can be clear and easily understood, but I want to sound like myself. When I'm done with the basics of A1, I start creating simple sentences out loud and in writing. I'd start trying to speak English regularly earlier than B2, like I did in my current English journey. I would go to classes, probably, because I like sharing my learning journey with others. It's also great to have the opportunity to get feedback on my output, and by output, I mean speaking and writing, from a teacher. But going to classes a couple of times a week wouldn't be enough, and I would need to study consistently by myself a lot. Somewhere in between A1 and A2, I'd start reading graded readers for my level, books with simplified vocabulary and grammar, and listen to podcasts with slow, clear English with transcripts. I wish I could have done the same thing for my English back then when I studied it at school. Can you imagine the progress I could have had? And I would definitely start reading from an e-reader or a phone app earlier. An e-reader allows you to read in English easier because you can always click on a new word and learn its meaning in a second. I read more than a dozen books in Dutch on my Kindle while being a beginner. I wish I could read books in Greek in this way, but there is no embedded Greek dictionary for my Kindle, unfortunately. But with English, luckily, you can read whatever you want with the help of the Oxford Dictionary. And nowadays, I do most of my reading via ebooks. Now it's time to get from A2 to B1, from pre-intermediate to intermediate. A good exercise book would help me reach B1 faster, and it would combine studying grammar with consuming content in English. The journey to B1 would be made through lots and lots of input and output, as well as the journey from B1 to B2. And I'd be patient going through the intermediate plateau. It's when you study a lot but don't see the results right away. I wouldn't neglect speaking and writing. Improving your active skills helps you learn vocabulary and grammar faster and more efficiently. I'd also learn how to use a monolingual dictionary at this stage and start moving away from translation. I'd be more relaxed when it comes to dealing with uncertainties. Extensive reading and listening are easier and more fun in this way. You don't have to understand any text, podcast, book, movie, etc. 100%. I wasted so much time in the past trying to read books by translating every single word in them, and it was a torture. I'd also changed my approach to learning vocabulary and grammar. I'd use active recall and spaced repetition instead of relying on rote memorization and just writing everything down without ever returning to the notes. I'd start sharing my experience of learning English with other people earlier. If you can explain a grammar concept to another person, this means you really understand it. I joined various communities to find like-minded people. Other learners can motivate you. A bit of healthy competition is also something that might work in your favor. Going from B2 to C1 means even more input and output. I'd be less afraid of making mistakes, especially in my speaking. I am not at school anymore, and I'm not getting graded on my use of English. I'd be learning from my mistakes. But that's what I would do if I had the chance. If you want to hear about my actual English learning journey, check out this video next. Thank you so much for watching, and see you next time with more awesome language content.